All right, everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Going Rogue podcast. But before we get into that episode, I have some people to mention. One of which being that the Woodridge Celtic Festival is live on heavyathlete.com right now. So if you go look up Woodridge Celtic Festival, Woodridge Farm Celtic Festival, or just go under the calendar function, you can set that up however you'd like. Go check it out, sign up. Heavy Athlete has just released some improvements for both lightweight tracking and then for premium users, a prediction feature, which I think is absolutely awesome. So definitely check them out. Make an account if you haven't so far. Claim your scores and get rolling on heavyathlete.com. Badger Highland Games Supply, you guys have heard us talk about them 1,000 times. You can find them on Facebook and Instagram the same way. Greg Martz makes some fantastic tacky products, equipment, anything you would need to get going in the Highland Games. We've also got the Strength Agenda. They are sponsoring some of our pro athletes for the Woodridge Farm Games. So the Strength Agenda actually offers a Highland Game specific ebook that you can download that's got event specific training, strength development, explosive power, technical precision, and then recovery and mobility modalities built in there as well. So if you're kind of looking for a one-stop shop on how to elevate your training for the Highland Games, reach out to Tom Sroka over there with the Strength Agenda. They also have remote coaching and other training programs available, so be sure to check them out. Scottish Throws Coach, speaking of great coaching, is run by Matt McDougall, one of our frequent co-hosts on the podcast. You can check him out at scottishthrowscoach.com. They have got it set up to where you can set up. That's really repetitive. We're going to edit a lot of that out. So, scottishthrowscoach.com. You can check that out. Matt McDougall is doing remote coaching specifically for the Scottish Highland Games. So, if you're looking for a way to get technique breakdowns and ways to structure your training as well, go check that out. The Savage Life Company. So Savage Life does a little bit of everything. They have personal coaching, they have accessories, they have flags, they have apparel, anything you could be in the market for. And I've got to say, their shirts look absolutely awesome. I think they just put some on the website that are designs they released specifically up at the Arnold booth. They are going to be sponsoring some of our athletes as well and having a booth at the Woodridge Games. So go check them out, savagelife.co. We've also got Stars and Thistles. I'm sure you've seen them making the rounds with their really fun hashtag #BeTacky. So a little bit about them. It's run by the Quarters. It started as a bit of a thing actually from, I believe, Kirsty's father. And so you've got some generational influence in there. And if I'm wrong and it's the not her dad, please don't be mad at me, Kirsty. But I'm going to read to you guys off of their website because I think they said it better than anyone could. They said their story began with a devoted father who cherished the traditions of the Scottish Highland Games and instilled with them the community and friendship that we've all come to know and love. So he's passed down that tacky making ability and recipe to them. And you've got multiple generations going into each batch of tacky, which I think is absolutely awesome. They say in a world that can sometimes feel serious, we encourage laughter and connection. Invite you to embrace this tradition with us and join in the joy of being tacky. So they just wrapped up their Highland Dames Clinic, which I think went over really, really well. You can go check them out at starsandthistles.com. You can get tacky, stickers, apparel, hoodies, t-shirts, you name it, they've got it. They've got some absolutely awesome stuff. So please go check them out. For all the updates on the Woodridge Farm Games and the people that are helping sponsor our pro class and the other levels of our competition as well, you can check all that out at our website, goingrogue.com. Without too much more ado, guys, we are going to get into the games. All right, and last but not least, we do have Kilted Patriot. So Kilted Patriot was founded in memory of Joel Sim. They are working to support the community of the heavy athletics that Joel really helped build and love. You can read more about them on their website, kiltedpatriot.com, under their About Us tab. They are sponsoring the athletic experience as well as individual athletes. That's what they're helping us out with at the Woodridge Games. Their goal is to encourage participation and keep growing the sport. And they tend to really focus on the athletic portion, which if you've ever heard us talk about that here at Going Rogue, that is really what we're big on, is the athlete experience. So we're very excited to be working with them. They contribute for food, swag, awards, things like that. They will have a special award at the Woodridge Games, and hopefully some swag baskets to go along as well for either winners or podiums of certain classes once we get that work out. So they're also working very hard to explore and encourage the adaptive side of the Scottish Highland Games. So if you're an athlete or you know someone who would be a good fit for that, please reach out to them. They are trying to get more adaptive classes at as many games as possible. The games themselves don't have to be adapted. It is just, an implement thing. So they are really pushing to ADs to try and get that much more widely available. So go check them out at kiltedpatriot.com.
Me and Pon sat on my back deck before hunting one day and talked for like an hour and a half, and I had no idea that I hadn't hit it. And after that, we did it in my truck and made one of the worst episodes I've ever made in my entire life. It was horrible.
I remember that story. It was good.
It's terrible. But
Perfect.
I want to set all this stuff up, but that'll be good enough. So, Danny Autrey, Alaska's top pro.
Only pro, but yes, I'll take the honors.
Yeah, leave that part out, and then it's called marketing.
Yeah, we got a lady. There's a lady that throws here that is absolutely good enough to be a pro. I mean, she's not throwing this year because she's just traveling the world and stuff, but she just she's super humble and kind of one of those like, oh, I'm not good enough. And then you look at her numbers, you're like, just do it.
Yeah. Well, also, like, I guess she wouldn't have the burden because, like, you go pro, you're now stuck with either open class games or invite games. Whereas if you're a woman, half the organizations out here don't put in pro women scores, go throw wherever you want to throw.
In a ways, it feels like you can envy them a little bit because they get to basically go throw wherever they want anytime. And I guess we kind of can as well. I don't know. It just feels different when I show up and they're like, yeah, I'm just going to be exhibition thrower. So
yeah, because you're not actually competing against anyone. It'd be a really weird setup. I don't have to worry about that. If you're just not good, you don't have that problem.
Well,
but
it's a good problem to have, I guess.
Yeah. You're good enough to like give people tips out there and have fun and maybe win sometimes, but not so good to have all the headache that comes with it. You're really float in that middle. But I wanted to go through kind of the things since it's your first time on the podcast, like the general intro stuff that we go over with people. So like, how long have you been throwing? What got you into this sport? What keeps you in this sport? And then anything that comes up. So.
Well, if we could talk about what got me into the sport / when I started throwing, I've actually been throwing a really long time. 2008 was the year that everybody kind of knows Highland Games, right? Everybody, I think most people kind of know Highland. You watched the episode Home Improvement where Tim the Toolman Taylor got out there and tried to do the Highland Games, right? So I knew about it, but didn't really know it was like a thing that you could find pretty much everywhere. So in 2008, on Father's Day, I was hiking in the woods of Alaska with a friend of mine, and we ended up getting chased up.
Okay.
No. We ended up getting chased off the trail by an angry mama bear, and decided like, okay, well, now what do we do?
That's the most Alaskan start to any story.
Yeah.
But go on.
So I got to find that mama bear and thank her for this whole, getting me into the sport thing.
Yeah.
And then so we get back to the trailhead, get back in the car, and she's like, hey, well, they're having a barbecue / practicing Highland Games at my dad's friend's house. Do you want to go out there? And I said, well, sure. I don't know what Highland. I mean, I kind of know what it is, but I've never done it. Never thought about doing it. At the time, I was basically just a power lifter. So we go over there. I learned how to do it. If you're familiar in the Pacific Northwest region, you probably have heard the name Brett McDonald, and that was her dad. And he's just well known in Alaska for building implements and just being the Highland Games in Alaska. And so he was the one that made all the implements that we were throwing and just kind of got me into the sport. And I didn't compete until the next year because that was, I think, either 1 or 2 weekends before the Alaska Highland Games. And so I didn't have enough time to get time off work and do all the stuff. So next year I started throwing. So first competition was 2009. I threw again in 2010. A rugby injury kept me from throwing in 2011. And then I had a hiatus until the year 2016. And that just happened to be the year that the IHGF Worlds came to Alaska. And as we all were, I was watching a lot of Matt Vincent at that time, and he was prepping to come to Alaska. And so I was kind of seeing, behind the scenes of prepping for Highland Games, prepping for World Championships, and it just kind of got my enthusiasm back into the sport. I was kind of past some humps in my life of getting married, having kids, starting a new career, and all those things. And then I was ready. I was ready at that point to dive into it. And again, getting to meet some idols, seeing those guys that you only see on the YouTubes, and kind of again sparked the fire. And it was about that point that I decided that, like, I think I'm gonna try to really put everything I got into this and see where I can go. I was a decent A-class athlete in 2016. You could pull my numbers up; they weren't anything phenomenal, but they were okay. And then I just kept after it. And of course, everybody had that little COVID year. Well, that COVID year, I didn't stop training because that was a year after I met John Oden, and he decided to adopt me as an athlete and became my coach from there out. And I never stopped training. I never stopped, finding ways to get better. I even flew to Oregon in 2020 to do his immersive clinic, to just continue to get better and better. And then, it paid off. Within a couple of years of that, I was rung up by, I had an idea that I wanted to go to go pro in the beginning of 2024. But I had an opportunity. Jay O'Neill reached out to me for Enumclaw, and that was actually the 2 weeks before Minnesota Amateur World Championships. And of course, you can't tell Jay no. You can't tell Enumclaw no. That's bad career move, if anything, and you never know when those opportunities are going to come again. So that was actually 2023 actually became the accelerated start to my professional career. So, and then now here we are. Now I'm in a bad position of basically just sitting around every, I don't know, March, April, May, like, what am I going to do this year? What people ask me what games I have, and I say, I don't know. They haven't started calling yet.
Yeah. How many games are you guys actually, like, do you have in Alaska? Like, what is...
So the Palmer Games, the Alaskan Scottish Highland Games, the big one is the last weekend of June every single year, and that one's been going since 1978 or 79 or something like that. Really long time. And in the past 15 years, they started a new games about an hour south of where I live in a town called Homer. And they always put that one week after the big Alaska Games, just so people who were traveling to Alaska as a bucket list item would be able to, if they booked a trip to be in Alaska for 10 days, they could do 2 Highland Games out of the whole deal. So,
okay.
Which is great for those people, but for us Alaska athletes, it's like, well, now you got
your season's
the big game,
long.
a big games, small games, and then we're done. And then most people just put their throwing stuff away and then don't do anything else for another, 50 weeks, and then come back. So again, that's not where I wanted to be. So I had to start adventuring. I had to start getting out there and traveling around the place. But now we this year is going to be the first year we're adding in a third games up in Fairbanks, which is about 9 hours north of me. So it'll be we'll see how that one goes. It's great. And it also has the benefit of being a full 6 weeks after the Alaska game. So now you have a season kind of, you got a couple of games back to back, and then another 6 weeks to start prepping for the next one.
And then another one. And it's a little further away, so geographically you're spreading them out a little more,
Yeah.
That's nice.
Those poor Fairbanks people are way up there in the middle of the state, which, I don't know how you feel about 9-10 hour drives, but they have to do that to pretty much go to anything.
Yeah, I like them. I'm a road trip over a flying guy.
Yeah.
Like, I have yet to fly to a game. I've driven to every game I've done. I drove to home games last year. I'll drive to Savannah, like West Virginia. I'm going to Pennsylvania next weekend. I always lived in a very rural area, and then I got a job where I spent 10 straight hours in a car anyway. So I don't care. I'm
Like,
very comfortable doing that. I'd much rather do that and move at my own pace instead of having to deal with airport security and seats that are uncomfortable. And is my
yeah,
sheath fork going to go missing in the middle of?
sure, yeah,
There's no. Yeah.
yeah. So I'm only like a 3 day drive if I have a partner to drive with me from my next closest games. So,
Would that be Washington or is that
yeah,
in
yeah,
Canada? Okay, yeah, because I think
Yeah,
that side of Canada is pretty empty population
oh, yeah,
wise, right? Like most of their stuff is closer to the east,
yeah. They
and
have.
so
If you go along the coast of British Columbia, there's more population there because of old fishing towns and whatnot. But once you start going more inland into British Columbia, into Alberta, there's a lot of farming and oil field stuff. So
yeah,
um,
not
pretty
conducive to large tourist attractions.
desolate.
Yeah, empty.
Yes.
But that's all right. It's gonna be the 51st state now. Uh,
Yeah.
God. But we don't have to get into geopolitics. We're gonna cruise past that part. We're gonna keep this about the thing 12 people care about, which is the Highland
Yeah.
Games.
Sure. Like that.
So that got you into the games, and you said you've been, doing it for a long time. You first
Yeah.
interested in '08, and then 16 started moving along. So like, what's kept you in the sport that long? Especially being as remote as you are and kind of isolated. That's a long
Yeah.
time to
Uh,
be in a
I'm,
sport with a high attrition rate. You know?
I'm I could be. I'm an idiot. I don't know. I always felt like
Fair.
I was. I grew up watching World's Strongest Man. Like I think that's a pretty common trend in our population that World's Strongest Man was a thing. So idolize strength, idolize just like being able to also be strong, but also move well and everything. And I threw a little bit in high school. Just I threw all 4 years of high school, but never took it any further than that. But I don't know. I think that what kept me going with it was that I was just good enough. I will say for
Yeah.
the first time I ever picked up a light hammer, I threw it 96 feet or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And where we were throwing, it almost got into the woods, and they're like, "Oh, hey, you're kind of good at that." And I'm like, "Yeah, that was good. Okay, cool."
You say so.
Then turns out like flash forward like the next 10 years, I was the worst hammer thrower on the field probably.
Isn't that the way that? Yeah.
Yeah, and I got better at all the other stuff, and just so was consistently finishing like fifth and sixth in both hammers. I'm like, oh, this sucks, and I had to go back and reinvent how I did it. But it was just, I continue to this day to kind of liken the Highland Games to like the golf of strength world. There's always something to get better at, which makes it interesting for me. I like
Yeah.
problem solving. I like trying to figure things out, and so there's 9 events. Yeah, really kind of like 5 basic events, but there's 9 events, and there's always something to just keep working on, keep getting better at. And um, I just already had the strength background from powerlifting and strongman, and was able to find a way to apply that to be actually athletic. No offense to strongmen or powerlifters, but you're not athletic, and just trying to find a way to move through space and use some of that strength to do something that felt, I don't know, like it was hard to do. And that keeps me after it again and again and again, just trying to constantly be better.
Yeah. No, that's great. I have got a few things now that everyone has a good feel for you about. These were specifically questions from Matt because he's up doing home games. I
Oh
just
yeah.
looked at the scores. We won't talk about those because I don't.
Uh-oh.
He threw okay, but he's down in the placings right now, so
Uh-oh.
we'll glaze over that. But some of
Is
his
heavy
things.
athlete live for this?
Yeah, so Mike went up there with them, and so he was live scoring throughout the day. I think he live scored the pros, as much of the AM men's as he could, and then he's just catching up on all the rest. So
Okay.
this isn't in no way live, so I would tell everyone, go look. But by the time this comes
Yeah.
out, they can definitely go look. It'll be up there.
Yeah.
So,
I hope so.
but yeah, all the scores are up. Spoiler alert, Vlad won, Spencer second, and then I forget who came in third. But
Okay. All right.
so there's
Yeah.
your day. But
I was gonna check it out. and I totally forgot about Heavy Athlete having the live function, so I was going to give it the day and check it out. But
You know what? Let me
good.
I can probably, I've got my little, I keep forgetting I actually prepared for this episode. So I have my
Oh,
iPad open. I have all this stuff right here in front of me. So let's see.
hell yeah.
Vlad, currently second in the world. That must be cool.
Yeah.
All right. So yeah, Vlad first with 18 points, Spencer 22 points, and then Glenn Nye 22.5 points.
Okay.
And then it starts to open up. Graham fourth, Scott fifth, Peter Karst Buma
Yeah.
sixth, then Jacob, then Matt. Okay, so he hadn't had sheaf scores in yet when I had looked. So that's changed. It looks like there's still 2 zeros in there. So either Scott and Peter no-heighted, or he hasn't updated, and those may still shift around some.
Well, there's a chance that Peter could have no height. He's one of them Europeans that doesn't do sheath.
Yeah, and I mean Scott's
Scott
what
would be.
he took a little time off. Like, he's a good sheath thrower. Don't get me wrong,
Yeah.
but also no fame's height rig will like get in your head. The weird ladder setup and like where the guidelines run and all that, it's very
Sure.
odd. And like if
Yeah.
you have a very specific place that you always throw sheath
Yeah.
from because you're used to a normal tower setup, and then you go throw on that, it can
Yeah.
be really, really weird.
Yeah. And Scott is a good sheath thrower. You're right. But his technique is a little bit like all or nothing sometimes, and
Mm-hmm.
he can really wing them up there. But if he doesn't dial in and get the and just get it over the bar, obviously.
That is
I
a
wonder
big part
how
of sheath.
yeah, how high are they getting the ladder up to? Because I remember that when I went to home games 2 years ago, uh, I want to say Laser and I had it pretty close. We were only using a 16 bag, spoiler alert, but we were taking shots at 36, and I
Yeah, it
thought that
looks
they were
like
saying that's pretty tall, pretty high.
yeah. Spencer, it looks like he won it with a 30-foot throw. Vlad
Okay.
27, Langworthy 27, Matt 24, Glenn 24, Graham 24. So it looks like
Okay.
everyone had I'm not throwing shit at a 30-foot, 20-pound sheath. That's great. Spencer holds a world record for a reason. But
Yeah.
your top throw out of a group of 8 guys was 30 feet. You know.
Huh. What's the weather
So
like up there? Is it raining?
I don't know if it's raining. I know the whole East Coast is hot as hell right now. I think it's
Oh.
even made it up that high. I know it's in the 90s here today, and they're talking about hitting over 100 for the next 2 days. And that's
Oh man.
like without our awesome Virginia humidity, that'll make it even worse. So can't
I
wait.
feel for you. It was 60 here.
Ridiculous.
Yeah.
Yeah, Vlad, after crushing his ankle like 6 weeks ago through a 132-foot light hammer. Good for him.
Yeah, I don't understand. That guy just came back just 12 days after he wrecked his
Yeah, he
bike.
was still in a boot, and he was like doing like muscle snatches and wob throws. And I was like,
Yeah.
aren't your bones not in one piece?
I don't know, man. Free healthcare. I don't know.
Yeah. Let's free healthcare. So one of Matt's questions is moving forward, or how do we move forward as far as the pro versus AM structure? Like, is that a thing that we should stick with? Should it be the open model, the traditional model? Like, we wrapped up the Games Are Dying series and asked a lot of those
Yeah.
questions. And by we, I mean me. But, so where does this sport go forward? Because we even talked about it in an episode we haven't released yet, where like we've got a fairly small group of competitive pros. Like, there aren't a ton. Like, once you get outside of the top 10 to 15, you start to see larger gaps.
Mm-hmm.
Now, we've got a lot of amateurs from that 10th AM spot through the 35th AM spot that are good AMs, but our pro pool is incredibly small and dwindling, and the sports numbers in general are not growing. So where do we go forward? How does the pro class fit into that? What do we do?
Well, I do. I've followed both yours and Jacob's on 9 Point Day, kind of this highlight of the games in general, where they're at, and then the different opinions on open class and the pro class, and how we get there. One thing that I can agree that, not necessarily isn't directly addressing the quality of the pro group, but ultimately through a few years, I think giving more people more opportunities to throw via more games, more backyarders, more, um, not feeling like you have to be attached to a festival to be able to get something going.
Mm-hmm.
Just giving people more options to throw, more places to throw locally, closer to them that they don't have to go. Like, I obviously Alaska's weird and different, and it takes me either a 3-day drive or a flight, expensive flight to get to go anywhere. But I think for most everybody else in the lower 48, having places that they can go throw often is going to bring up the quality.
Yeah.
I don't know if you pay a close attention to like the Pacific Northwest. I know that's kind of out of your region, and
Yeah.
you
It's honestly one of the areas I don't know a ton about just because it is so far removed,
there are some very good throwers up there, and they have a lot of games. I think I was talking to Scott about this because Scott came up to him and I coached a clinic in Alaska together, and he
Yeah, I
came
saw
down
that.
and
His whole Instagram for like a 2-week period was just Scott throwing with random people.
yeah,
And it
yeah,
would be like, I was like,
perfect.
what is he doing? Is he just Where's Waldoing
Yeah, yeah,
country right now?
yeah. So he taught the clinic with me, but he came down a few days, and him and I got a throwing session in together before that, and so we talked about this a little bit, and kind of where he is around Utah. There's
Mm-hmm.
He says it's pretty sparse. There's not a lot of people to get together with, which tells you there's probably not a lot of small local games that you could jump into.
Yeah.
But the Pacific Northwest is different, and I think the Southeast and I don't know specifically geographically like for you and how many y'all have an opportunity to do, but like I know Florida, if from January through April or May in Florida, you can compete 2-3 times a month. It seems like
Yeah.
Pacific Northwest, you can compete through say June all the way through August. You can probably compete 10 or 12 times if you wanted to. And
Okay.
no, for me, driving from Washington to Oregon to Idaho to potentially even Northern California doesn't seem like that big of a deal. We're talking a 10-hour one-way trip. Yeah, it's a long trip, but it's not. You can make a weekend of that.
Yeah.
So I think there's tons of opportunity for them. But looking around the rest of the country, it doesn't seem like that's the case.
Mm-hmm.
So all of these locales are going to have a way to I don't know, have more backyarders, put on more opportunities for more athletes to get in there, so that we start drawing more people in. And then
Yeah.
once we draw more athletes in, the cream's going to rise to the top. And then you're going to start seeing and seeing people that are new to the sport that you're like, hey man, you're kind of good at this. There's a couple of things you need to work on, but you're kind of good at this. What about these opportunities that you could go dive in, whether it be the open class or ultimately one of the big pro games, one of the big shows, Pleasanton's,
Mm-hmm.
Enumclaw, uh, I, world, whatever the world championship happens to be,
No.
wherever it has to be. And we'll get back to that. I think that your game is an opportunity for sure.
Yeah.
So I think that's
it's
how I think
really
that's
weird.
I think well we can make it weird.
We're gonna.
And I intend to.
Yes.
But I think that step one is we have to have more opportunities to have more games. Because if you just want to increase exposing athletes, then you have to give more opportunities. And Alaska's grown to the point where next weekend there are 154 Highland Games throwers. That's not to include the strongman, the people who's going to do the stone lifting or the exhibition strength events like the challenge stone throw or the farmer's carry. There's 154 throwers. That's huge. I think that might, other than Masters World Championship, which is
its own
whatever,
animal.
its own animal. I don't think there's a bigger actual games in the country.
That would probably be accurate. I know Josh and Sean had this conversation last year because home games had a really large turnout.
Mm-hmm.
But I think Josh was lumping in the people that were doing the Highlander event.
I think so too, and it's appropriate. It's an athletic event.
And I think SAAA also had another event that was in the triple digits. I don't remember. I'm for running a podcast in the sport, I'm a horrible historian of the sport.
Yeah.
Like I read vibes much better than I can actually recall like exact statistics or this. I can be like, I remember 5-ish years ago, I felt good. That's all I got, man. I don't
Yeah.
remember. Like,
Yeah.
I run everything off of a Google spreadsheet somewhere so that my brain doesn't have to think about this stuff.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Like,
And I think in your series of the Highland Games is dying, because I think I'm more like you than the other way. When you were telling me like, oh, it's been dying for a long time, I felt like I remembered it felt like it was growing between 16 and 19.
hmm and then
Maybe it
it
was just the
just,
exposure. I don't know. Maybe it
I,
was just how
I,
people were seeing it.
that's the thing. I think that 16 to 19 time was where you still had such easy to follow good content makers in the sport that it felt like it was growing. Because
Yeah,
any game you went to, everyone was watching Matt Vincent's YouTube channel. Everyone had seen Dan McKim's videos
yeah,
and Mike Beach's videos. So I think in reality, there were 3 to 4 people making content regularly about the sport.
yeah,
So for those of us that were invested, it felt like we were really a part of this big machine that was just churning, you
yeah,
know? Where in reality, when I stepped back and looked at the numbers, I was like, oh, it actually wasn't. It was growing for me personally because my knowledge of the game was growing. I was
yeah,
seeing more of how other people trained and other games
yeah.
people went to. But
Likewise. I mean, that was my period,
yeah,
like coming back into it in 2016 and
hmm
kind of starting that process in late 15. Yeah, I was, you're becoming more aware because you're paying attention more, right?
yeah,
So
and I
that's
think
probably a lot of it.
yeah, I think that was a lot of what it was, and I think at least that effect I think is happening now. Like between it, whenever I'm able to put stuff out, Langworthy's able to put out some really high quality stuff. Um, you had the other guy down in Texas try for a little bit, and he's refocused. I think his name was Rooster or something. He ran
Yeah,
some sort
yeah,
of.
yeah.
He
Yeah,
tried that for
I
a little
think
bit. We've got another guy trying to work into live streams and all that
yeah,
now.
more power to those
Um,
guys. I hope it works, man.
Dude, that one is, it's a thing I have yet to live stream specifically are just tricky because cell coverage or Wi-Fi. Like we don't
Mhm.
always do this in a place that has that good option. I got
Starlink,
halfway
baby,
through,
Starlink.
right? I got halfway through the highlight reel I'm making of Central Carolina, which I'm still working on, but then I had to move. So like love everyone, would love to put all that together, but it doesn't actually pay me money, and I have to live in a place with air conditioning and a roof. So
Yeah,
like when that
I
comes up, that's
yeah,
priority. No
yeah,
one's no one's paying me to do it.
yeah.
So
So I
it's
I think that I can that takes us into like the next step in growth of like what is truly going to separate the pros from the amateurs.
yeah.
And so I listening to Jacob's last podcast
hmm
with Nate, and he was talking about the UHA and the Ultimate Heavy Athletics and some of
Yep.
the old content that's on there. And I was watching some of that stuff for the first time. And besides the terrible sound quality, you have to have your speakers
Yeah.
cranked all the way up to hear anything. I was like, man,
And it still just
how?
sounds like someone turned up the volume in the next room, not even in the
Yes,
one you're
exactly.
listening to. Yeah.
Yeah. I was like, how is that not a thing right now? Like, what is it gonna take to get that level of production? Because it's not that high of a level of production. First of all,
No,
it's
and
nothing. It was nothing
it's not that
amazing.
hard. I structured it the same way for the highlight reel for Central Carolina. The hardest part was making the initial template to put up leaderboards on. After that, you're just clipping a few throws together from each event and
Yeah,
doing a voiceover. It's not rocket science, it's just time consuming.
yeah, and I
That's
and I totally understand that. And I'm like, okay, well, what that's gonna take is gonna be it's probably not gonna be one of us yet. It's
yeah.
gonna take one. It's gonna be one of us when we're retired and we still actually give a shit.
hmm
But the people who care about it the most can't just be the athletes who need to go throw, right?
Yeah.
I think that one of the things that Nate Burchett was talking about was for back when they had the HD Live,
hmm
Spencer was putting a ton of time into that. Well,
Yeah.
at the same time, Spencer was the best Highland Games thrower in the world, and he had to
Yep.
go out and perform. And that's not something sometimes I just when I'm video my stuff for to create a YouTube video or some Instagram content or whatever. Sometimes I'm having frustrating day on the field, and I just scrap it all together. I'm like, fuck it, I'm not filming anything else because this is too distracting, and I don't have the mental bandwidth right now to
Mm-hmm.
be able to focus and pay attention to this. So, and that's just with some silly like 30-second clips that I'll record. So to think about that whole endeavor of a whole live experience, like I said, it can't be an athlete. It can't be an athlete trying to be the best in the world.
Yeah,
So
it really, I don't think the people that have always said, oh, it wouldn't be really that hard. I agree with you completely. The times that I've intentionally set up a camera either at practice or at a game to make content, like all of a sudden 50% of my brain power is just gone. Even though all I am doing is rolling it, there's inevitably something else that comes up. The phone storage gets full, or the tripods are blowing over, or people
phone
are walking
overheat.
in. Like,
I mean,
yeah, it really draws you out of what you're trying to do that day. It makes it
yeah,
way harder than you would think, because you think, oh, I've been to practice, I've recorded myself. This is no, I'm just doing that, right? And like, no, it adds this whole other layer that makes it just a more taxing and time consuming experience. And
yeah, yeah.
then it ends up costing me a bunch of money because I'm a stupid perfectionist who's bad at budgeting. And what happens is I go, well, that didn't work. Maybe if I go buy a camera, and maybe if I go buy another tripod, maybe if I
Oh
go buy
yeah,
some more mics, and maybe if I,
snowballing.
you know, yeah, it like it's a slippery slope, at least for me personally. And I
Sure.
think that personality trait is kind of shared with a lot of people in the game, because like we all wouldn't hyper fixate on this
Yeah,
little competitive corner
yeah,
if
yeah.
we didn't have some underlying traits that were similar, you know?
So yeah, I think so. The real answer is it's got to be a network of some
Mm-hmm.
sort. In this day and age, we have so many network opportunities. I think we don't just have ESPN on the TV. I
Yeah.
mean, there's Peacock, and which is I think owned by CBS or NBC or
NBC. Yeah.
NBC. You
Yeah. CBS
Paramount,
has
got
their own streaming, and then they're tied in with
yeah.
Parrot. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So I think there's a ton of streaming services that are out there. I mean, the sport
Or
of
even
rugby
like,
has two or three apps that are free to the consumer. Somehow they still make money, and so somehow they're still able to put on like the international level athletes and international games on
yep.
TV or well on the app. I There's got to be. It just takes connections. I think it's almost like one of those like you got to know somebody.
I think that's what it'll end up coming down to. Because I mean, even I was scrolling Instagram Reels the other day, probably when I should have been sleeping, and I came across some sort of farmhand competition that Rogue was running. Like Rogue made feed bags for these, and it's just dudes. They didn't even. I don't want to throw shade at them. Should any of them ever find this podcast? Like they didn't look like athletes. This was not CrossFitters or strongmen, and they just did a competition that looked this way. These were just farmers. These were dudes in work boots and
Yeah.
jeans, but like they had posts coming out of the ground that were all stamped Rogue. They had feed bags that were stamped Rogue. Everything they were moving under and over, and I'm like, we can't. You're telling me Rogue, if we talk to the right person, wouldn't make us some implements and a video when they're filming, and it's in a rodeo rink, and there's only like 8 people in the stand. I'm like, this isn't even. How did this come to be, and
Yeah.
we can't make that happen? Like I was talking with Matt on the phone the other day, and like losing the Arnold is still one of the things that like rubs me the worst way. The fact that I still don't know a lot of details. I've talked to some
No.
people, but like there was a fumble somewhere along the line. We were having good floor space at the largest strength sports expo in the world, and we don't anymore.
It blows my mind. I don't
Like,
understand.
I mean, Spencer was on the stage with Half Thor in his prime, and I don't know how much more exposure you could want to buy or have. But
Yeah.
that was just it.
Yeah.
To fumble that and one not explain to everyone what happened, because I would think that whatever organization was running that and is no longer, like if they weren't at fault, I would think they would say, let me go talk to the athletes and tell them.
Yeah.
But I've never heard from their mouth what happened.
Yeah.
I hear a
I
lot of
think
other people's opinions, but
the Great Lakes State Athletic Association or something along those lines.
GLS,
Yeah.
AA,
They were the
or
ones.
whatever.
They were the ones that had the reins. Of course that sucks. Maybe they did nothing, and maybe it was just It was the Arnold itself created a inhospitable atmosphere for the games to proceed. But yeah, you're right. I think that them
But dude,
getting
I'd
out
be
and
bending over
explaining to
backwards.
everybody what happened. Oh,
Yeah.
I
I mean, if the Arnold ever came up to me and said, "Can you put on that?" I'd be like, "Absolutely. What do you need from me?" I
yeah,
mean, I'm morphing our game into whatever you need it to be able to be present. Like
sure.
as unfortunate as it is, like that venue would hold the power. Like they would get to do whatever they want,
Yeah,
and then
if
I'm
we're
just gonna
looking
make it work.
if we're looking at the Highland Games at the Arnold not being about the Highland Games, because guess what? It's not. It's
Hmm.
about the overall show. Then the people who run the Arnold have to. They're going to get to dictate what we're doing and how we do it. And you're right. I
Yep.
think that you know we all kind of, I think, as athletes, accepted the fact that like, it's an indoor Highland Games, um, and it's not truly like you know, what we're aspiring to be, like the pinnacle of our sport.
Hmm.
But if we look at it as the value is it being the thing that gets more eyes on the sport, that gets more sponsors looking at the sport, is seeing as a worthy place for them to invest their money in, then we got to do whatever it takes to keep that happening.
Yeah. Yeah. Without a
And
doubt.
and that's, again, I mean, the money rules this world as much as anything. So finding a way to get to a network so that sponsors can feel good about throwing,
Money
not
at it.
just
Yeah.
250 or $500, because that doesn't do much of anything. Um, when we look at having a solid pro class costing 25 to $35,000.
Hmm.
So, and I mean, that's a whole nother story altogether, because like we do this thing, us pros even, we do this thing for almost chump change compared to what professional elite top tier strongmen are doing their thing for. I
Yeah.
mean, greatest show on
Matt.
earth, or strongest man on earth, sorry, strongest man on earth is
Mhm.
paying over six figures for their winners. Imagine
Yeah.
if our winner got even $5,000 or $10,000, minds would be blown. People would be like, no, I want to be a pro now. Like, I have to go be a pro because look at that money.
Yeah. I don't remember exactly what show it was that Matt was talking about, but when I talked to him on the phone the other night, he had done some research, and he said Matt Vincent's highest paying single game was something like $35,000. And like, holy! First of all, I had that same look on my face. But let's say it was half of that. That's the if you had 2 to 3 pro games a year where, let's say you went and win one of them and you make 20 grand. I mean, that is
Oh yeah.
phenomenal. I mean,
Even
you're
if
you're
that's not
finally
even if that's not accurate on Matt's part, but yeah, let's go down that road. If
yeah.
if we
And like
were if Pleasanton was the place that had a couple $100,000 to give out in prize money, how hard, how much training, how would we elevate our professional class if
yeah,
that was a possibility?
because guess what? You're no longer having to pick up overtime shifts at work or do any of that other stuff. You can take all that extra time where you're just trying to make a living and put it into training to do a thing that you love and still potentially make a living at. Like you'd see pros investing in better training, better nutrition, supplementation, time management because they have the opportunity to actually go earn a real paycheck
Yeah,
instead of just enough to make the weekend worth it. You know,
yeah.
like
I mean,
it would be phenomenal.
and that's a long road. I mean, strongman they've been getting paid for a good bit of time. World's Strongest Man was started in the 70s, I think, and it's grown and grown. But now we're talking about, like, not only do you have World's Strongest Man, you got the Arnold, you got the Rogue Invitational, you got Shaw's competition, you got um, uh, what's what's
You
the
got Giants Live.
Giants Live? Yes, that's what I was
Yeah.
getting at. Giants Live, and then here and there, like we've had uh, some Arabians throwing money at it. I don't know,
Mm-hmm.
but
Yeah,
they
there were some weird pop up like
yeah,
three competition things
yeah,
that
super weird. But
Mm-hmm.
if we can even get our way a fraction of the way towards that, Again, we're not talking like handing out $100,000 prize money, but $20,000 for a winner. Hey,
Yeah.
I think you'd bring up the quality of the class for sure, and then you'd start seeing separation because, if your top 10 gets better, the 10 below that get better, the 10 below that
Yep.
get better.
Well, and then
And I think,
you're going to start improving the size pool because you're going to start having guys in other sports hear about that. I mean, how many of us, probably damn near all of us, came from a different strength sport
mhm,
where we were in powerlifting or strongman or Olympic lifting and doing okay, but not lighting the world on fire. And then we heard about this thing. We said, I think I'd be a good fit over there. And
yeah,
if you could start adding dollar figures to that, I mean, you're going to start increasing that draw and that notoriety, and more people are going to talk about it. And yeah, but
yeah,
that's wishing in one hand.
yeah. And so I don't think anything that I've said is like a startling revelation. Like there's nothing weird that I said. It's like you need network backing, and for networks to want to get in, then of course the
We could
sponsors are
make
going
it
to.
weird. What if
Yeah.
OnlyFans is the way that we start this? We start a
Uh,
Highland Games
hey,
OF that streams the games and then takes custom requests. I
there we
think
go.
that's our. There we go. We're
Woodridge,
making it weird.
Woodridge
We're
Farms,
finding a
baby.
format. What happens in the cabin stays in the
Yeah,
cabin.
I was gonna say nobody knows what they signed up for until
Oh
right now.
God, no. Yeah, you're only making a few $100s to do some really weird stuff.
Hey, it's all good.
What's there a kiddie pool full of Jello? Man, gotta pay bills.
What the people want.
Yeah. Oh, geez. All right, so
But yeah, beyond that is us professionals have to start acting like professionals. I think is another thing.
I think
And
so
and
immensely. Yeah.
I'm not saying like I don't. I've ran into. I get along with everybody, so it's kind of hard for me to say that. But there's very few people that I'm like, oh man, this guy's a jerk. But I think that should somebody have considered you a professional, you're probably a professional by now. So getting out there, teaching, um, you know, having some sort of obligation to like grow your presence in social media, creating content that people can go and find. Again, with the idea that like I'm giving people ideas on how to structure their training, what type of investment they're going to have into themselves in order to be able to get better, answer private messages, all of those things. It's just something we got to do. And
Yeah, I can't agree more. Yeah.
I currently, I have the YouTube channel. Hold on a second.
Yeah.
I've got the YouTube channel, and I just, most of the stuff's on there for me. It's kind of like my training blog. At the end of the day, if nobody watched it, and nobody asked me any questions, I'd still probably do a lot of the same stuff because it's pretty good. It's better than writing the stuff on paper for me. I don't know.
Oh
Just
yeah.
rather like, oh, I get to watch what I did, and then I even have some commentary about what my mindset was at the time. A little more subjectivity I can pick up on. So, but it's there. It's there as a resource for people. I will say that I'm not outright trying to mimic what Matt Vincent's channel was because I'm not into the whole like lifestyle vlogging. Because I mean,
Yeah.
I don't fly somewhere different every week and go hang out with other Instagram or YouTube influencers. So I have that going with me.
No alpha male seminars in your future, and
Sure, none of that. None of that.
okay, cool.
I'm out on that. But as far as the training stuff, just the lifting weights, the practice, the throwing, and then the coverage of the games themselves. Like I want that to be left on the internet for people to kind of go and look at when they have time to look at it. And so far that I know, the only people doing that in the pro class are me, Jacob, and Justin Blatnick.
Yeah.
And I know that not everybody's going to have the time or inclination to go do all that. It's not really that hard, guys. If you were thinking it was hard,
That's the
I
thing.
do it. It ain't that hard.
You could just record practices and put them up there. You don't have to do commentary over top of it or any of that other stuff. You know? I mean, is it going to get as many views? Probably not, but
right.
You can do something.
So yeah, and I think that it's only going to take it doesn't have to be everybody, but I think a certain percentage of people, if people had that to go look for, And I think we do have to move past just what's flashy on Instagram, because I did that for the longest time. The only thing I had was, cool throwing video on Instagram, but that's all it was it had some edit, some splicing together of different clips, and it looks cool.
Mhm.
And that in itself is a tool that I think helps with getting, if I have a video with 1.6 million views, at least
Yeah.
that's 1.6 million looks at Highland games.
Mhm.
Um, but it doesn't. There's no substance behind it. There's no meat there to
No,
digest.
those are the things that and you need all of it to exist, right? Because you
Sure,
need those
everything.
people that don't know the sport to see the catchy,
Yeah,
flashy, fast thing. But
exactly.
now I get pissed when I see someone like winding up for a throw and I'm going to watch it trying to see technically like what's happened. And then all of a sudden there's a bunch of jump cuts and weird and
Yeah,
I'm like, no, I wanted
yeah.
to know where the weight went and how they moved.
They're
I
trying to
didn't want to
analyze that.
see yeah, and now there's a
Yeah,
cut in of Christopher Walken talking about something. I don't like. What's happening right now?
yeah,
It
yeah, yeah. But you're
it
right. It needs
drives.
all of it. We got to have all of it.
Yeah, which is the thing. I'm just not the target audience for those posts. Like,
Yeah,
and I accept that. That's for the new guys who just want to see the cool, fun, fast stuff. They're
yeah,
not at the point yet where like they're constantly technically wanting to know what's happening in a throw.
yeah.
You know, so there's a place for all of it. Really quick, Matt wanted you to weigh in on wing versus standard trigs. Not to
Oh,
side, but
wing,
this is our
wing
yeah.
all the
Do you
way.
have a reasoning for that outside of you liking it? Like, is there
Mm,
a deeper thought process, or is that just personal
I
preference?
don't think I have much of a thought process. I just feel more comfortable in that big old box, as
Mm-hmm.
some people, you like the bigger ones. Um, I,
Yeah.
I, I just feel like I don't feel constrained to a small space.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Ultimately, I'm still going to, I guess, arguably, you have more room when you have a standard trig because you can, do the splits. But my throws aren't good if I have to like
Catch yourself
save
3 feet to the
save
left. Yeah.
exactly. If I have to save the throw by doing the splits, I probably didn't have a good throw. So
Yeah.
the little bit of extra space isn't much for me, but I do like the wing trigs because, like I said, I maybe it's just the fact that it's very well defined. It's this
Mm-hmm.
box is this big and it's super defined as to where I can the confines of where I'm going to
Yeah.
be. And
Being and
and
not
look,
being is very
yeah,
clear.
looking at it, I'm not claustrophobic by any means, but in a standard trig box, which you know I would say probably only a quarter of the games that I throw in are standard
Mm-hmm.
trig boxes, I feel all of a sudden a little bit more congested. Like, oh, I got this very narrow spot to actually get the work done in. I feel that way, even though I know it's not really that true.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Good deal. Maybe that'll tick some people off.
Good.
Um, one of the things I had written down because it is a hot topic. I saw another post about it literally right before this. Everyone is really mad about testing at Masters Worlds right now for
Oh
some
yeah,
reason.
I just saw
Have you
that.
kept it? Yeah, there's been two different posts that I've seen. So one was on like the Texas Celtic Athletic page, and then another one was on a post for the Nazca Legends. So did I actually bother to screenshot any of these? No, I didn't. Good. So I wasn't too prepared. I don't want to make anything crazy. But
Yeah,
there was one guy who just went on like the Texas page and just said, "Heads up for everybody invited to Masters. There's doping policies." Like,
yeah,
and it was a very odd, very weird thing to just say out of nowhere. Let me see if I can find it because I somebody's gonna be like, "Well, that's not what he said," and I'm gonna be like, "It's pretty fucking close." But let me make myself accurate here. FYI to all who's attending the Masters World, there's an anti-doping policy, and it's got a whole bunch of comments where some people are saying great, some are saying, "Oh, that's terrible." Some people, I was reading a weird tone when they're like, "Most Masters are on TRT." Like, brother, I'm 33, and if you think I'm not going to go get my levels tested in 2 years, you're wrong. Like,
right.
what do you? But do you have an opinion on? We can talk about Masters specifically. We can talk about the games in general. Like, I feel like the people, my personal opinion is the ones that are going down this road hard are putting the cart before the horse. I and it's also a double-edged sword. Tom Soroka just put out a long video on Instagram talking about it, where his argument is a strict or at least well-defined anti-doping policy would help to legitimize the games, and I think there's some merit to saying that. But my counterpoint is, are we large enough to have to worry about that yet? But would worrying about that make us large enough to worry? It's a weird catch-22 in my mind.
Yeah.
Of, do we do everything possible to legitimize? Now, do I personally believe anti-doping is a form of legitimizing a strength sport? I don't think so, but I get that other people do. But
yeah, we're in a weird crossroads, right? Like we're not just a strength sport; we're like a technique sport, right? So,
yeah,
but
we're closer to the WWE than we
yes,
are some legitimate sports,
yeah, that takes us back to the whole like pro versus amateur. We all know that charisma gets you as many invites as talent, as long as your talent is at a minimum threshold.
Well, or look at the Savannah Bananas compared to the MLB, right?
Yeah, there you go.
I mean, those dudes are literally renting out larger and larger venues any chance they get in every state they can get to because the demand is so high. Because
Yeah,
they dance and do stupid TikTok videos in the middle of the field, but people have...
because they're entertaining, yeah.
Right? So is anyone worried about the weird scoring system that they use? Or are they going, oh, I'm getting to go see baseball, but it's fun?
Yeah, so I think that so my personal opinion, specifically at master's level, I think that that could be a nail in the coffin for the masters, in my opinion, because there are a lot of masters that are shifted to using TRT.
Now, that is allowed looking at the Scottish Athletics International PED policy. So I did go and look because someone put a link up to it. And so if you have a doctor's, there's a form they can obtain to where your physician can say this person is prescribed X, Y, and Z.
Something like a TUE, like a therapeutic use
similar.
exemption.
So what I found very interesting is they did something that Tom talked about. And again, I don't know if his intent was to talk about it directly about this post or another one that I maybe didn't see. So I don't want to put words in Tom's mouth. But they literally say a link of banned substances can be found below. And it's just a link straight out to USADA, like to the USADA website. So they're adopting the banned substance list from them, which is fine. However, their testing procedures are wildly different. Like if Masters Worlds, if the SIA or SAI wants to get you tested, they just tell you, hey, Danny, go test. And you have to, of your own dime and give a shit, go do it. And if it comes back clean, they reimburse you. But but is my local LabCorp going to run the test the same way that USADA does?
Yeah.
Almost certainly not. So I think it's an attempt at a clean sport, quote unquote, whatever that would mean, but it's a very strange way of implementing it to put the cost back on their athletes. And
that is a weird way. I didn't know it was like that. I haven't looked that much into it. So I'm giving like a very shallow opinion of this, right? A very uneducated opinion, but I think that so if they do have a fairly easy to get therapeutic use exemption, I'd be less upset about it. Like I think my opinion is that I don't think people should be going like basically freelancing their TRT, I guess you could say, black market and everything, because
freelance
not very healthy.
TRT is how I'm gonna describe gear from now on.
Right. But I do think, like I said, this is a very physically demanding sport, and I think a lot of people who are continuing to do to compete at the level that we compete at times, they're needing that extra help because they're all 40 plus years old. So I think that them having to agree with Tom a little bit there, having a legitimate route, a legitimate testing policy that does allow for therapeutic use exemptions, I think it could. I could definitely see the argument that it does allow for, to say, hey, we're pretty legitimate here. It's not just a bunch of just roided up freaks out here just doing circus stuff. But also, who are we eliminating,
Mm-hmm.
right? Which guy are we eliminating? Who's the one that's out there just taking anything and everything he can? Um, just massive doses of non-prescribed substances and beating people. I don't know who that is. Somebody there within the masters might know who that is. So we know that the crossroads of skill versus strength, there's a lot of skill and a lot of technique involved. And
Mm-hmm.
aside from maybe your wob or potentially sheaf, nobody's just going out there and dominating everybody on the Highland Games field just because they increased the amount of drugs they were doing.
Yeah. Yeah,
So
potentially.
yeah,
And that's one of the sides of that I use creatine. I don't want to give anyone the wrong impression here. No. But like I am pretty ignorant of what someone would even necessarily use for this sport, right? Like I don't know what would give them the best bang for their buck, or would it carry over to a full 9-event day, or would it not? Or are you just going to start tearing tendons off of your body left and right?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know.
So it really.
So yeah. I guess to continue my point is like, who are we eliminating? So why are we even bothering? And if they're doing it the way you're saying, where you have to go on your own, find your own lab and tell them, hey, test me for these things, because this organization said I had to. I guess that takes the financial burden away from the organization, because that's another point that people have brought up before is there's already no money in this, and everybody who does it pays to play for the most part. So we're taking even more money away from the sport itself, and whatever people are wanting to do with that money, right? Like if we're a big enough festival and we're trying to have a pro class, and now all of a sudden we have to put, I don't know, $5,000 into our potential drug testing. That's $5,000 that got taken away right out of the pro class, unless you're taking it from somebody else. Whatever
from
else
something.
you took it from the pipers and the drummers, which those guys really want a lot of money for some reason. I don't know.
Right. Their outfits are probably very expensive. There's a lot of wool.
Probably right.
But
if it comes at the cost of taking even more money out of a sport where there's no money, again, who are we eliminating?
But I think it takes money out regardless, right? Because you're either going to take money out of the AD's budget, or you're going to take money from the athlete and potentially drive down your registration numbers anyway.
Yeah.
And when people hear that, they go, oh, well, then those people were on gear and they didn't want to. I'm like, no, that could mean that person takes cough medicine and they don't know whether they'll get popped. Or that person is on TRT but didn't have time to go get there are a lot of non-malicious reasons that it still would put a barrier to some people.
And they looked at it and said, I don't know whether I am or am not, but now I'm not even going to sign up, because I was like, I don't have time to go. I had just enough time in my life and interest in it to go sign up and do it. But now they're throwing steps in the way. I don't want to do it anymore. So
yeah. So I think that's.
Can we afford that? I doubt it.
I don't think we can afford to lose anyone right now. I mean, again, going back to the numbers that I shared when we did the games are dying stuff, I think now is not the time to put potentially more hurdles in the way. I think now is the time to do what you're saying, what Matt and I have been saying, and more backyarders, more accessible games, more practice groups. That's where our focus needs to be. And if all that goes well in 10 years from now, more than just the top 2 games in the country want to have a testing procedure, cool. But then you're going to have to revamp your system on how to do that. Because one, if it's only on game day and everyone knows ahead of time, it's not that fucking useful anyway.
Yeah, they're not testing.
No, you're giving someone a pat on the back, or
if you're not chasing
1 to 2.
If you're not chasing Nick Ponzio around the world, trying to get the guy, then are you really testing even?
Yeah, the new heavy athlete function is going to be a tracker, so that Mike McDougal's going to show up at your house and take your pee.
That's frightening.
It's terrifying. The man never wears shoes either. There's just some weird little programmer with bare feet standing outside their house going, "Pee."
Pee.
But
I
yeah,
want your urine.
he's not even drug testing. He's just on a weird side quest.
Doing weird stuff.
Oh, yeah, just doing weird shit, man.
I don't know. I got two jokers in my gym right now. I got a doppelganger, one of your doppelgangers in here. Can you see that guy way over there?
It's a blur.
Oh,
Like
okay.
your connection moved the second you moved the camera, so I could see some pixels that appear to be a white guy.
Like, well, yeah, it's a goofy guy. He's Virginia adjacent. He's from North Carolina, and his name's Jeremy too. So whatever.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
I'm no longer unique or important. Fuck.
And he's 6'5". So I don't know. Are you two?
I'm 6'4". So yeah. It's pretty close.
I think you two are cousins.
Yeah. Does he have a really long torso? My dad could have gotten around. I don't know.
He does, dude.
Does he throw?
No, he doesn't do that.
What the dude? If he's 6'5", you've met the barrier to you're already.
He was in the Navy, so the best he does is throw it back at Marines.
Dude, I was gonna say there are a lot of dudes he can hug and kiss on the cheek. He'll be fine.
Yeah.
Like if you're into confined spaces with other men, this is a good sport.
Well, it's fair. It's a good selling point.
So, yeah. Look, again, there are markets we haven't been hitting.
Yeah.
And
we're here.
Yeah, the amount of numbers we could do with the bear population is insane, and we're not exploiting that.
Oh man. So there's and I don't remember seeing them this year, but there's a roving bear gang at the Enumclaw. Constantly, they regularly show up, and they get right up on the.
They're probably with Jay. They're just hanging out with him, and they just follow.
He just hires them. He's just like, "Hey guys, just join me. Get them hyped up." Yeah, hype these guys up. Yeah, but they're definitely there, man. They're the regular people, and they're those fans that like remember you from last year type of guys.
Oh,
you know.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if you, I was about to get really. It was going to be a funny joke, but not during this month. I'll save that for next month.
No, okay, got it.
Yeah. we'll glaze over that.
Yeah. I'll check you out in July.
There we go. Yeah, we'll revisit this. We'll do a part 2. All right, good. So doping is that, and
I really liked I'm a forum kid, that's where I grew up. Is like every hobby that I had, that it's not something that you could go down to your local YMCA or your gym. You're the one representing your area, type of guy. There's no not big numbers of your hobby around you. You had to resort to the forums to get information and to see things and see what other people were doing. So of course I loved the NASGA web forums, and there's many of those threads that were on NASGA web talking about the elephant in the room and this and that. And it was it seems like the resounding opinion. There was people that were definitely completely 100% for doping, and I think that's really what the IHGF was founded upon. Like one of the major tenets of the IHGF was we need to have 100% clean sport. And then there was the other guys that had the exact same opinion. Like, man, guys, we don't have. There's no money here. Somebody, Mike Dickens quoted Mike Deach on one of his posts regarding this topic specifically for the Masters Worlds. Was, guys, we're like 20 yards from a corn dog stand. Don't take this so seriously, right?
Yeah. What are you doing? Yeah.
Yeah. So it seems like a lot. I feel like there were more people with that opinion than the other. And not that I don't agree with, like, yes, clean sport should be encouraged. Let's try not to like take this thing and it's not the thing to completely ruin your health for, essentially.
Oh yeah.
But is it necessary? Who are we eliminating?
Yeah. I not anyone. And honestly, it's one of those.
Newsflash: Kyle Lilly and John Van Buren will still be the best throwers that we have in our generation right now.
Well, that's the thing. So this almost never seems to affect the number one people for whatever reason. Draw from that inference whatever you will. Either they're number one because they're smart enough to dope and get away with it, or they're number one because they were always going to be better than you. I'm not saying I'm in either camp. I'm just saying in all sports in general, it'll be one of those two, right? And even if tomorrow we all adopted a doping policy and had the money, people would still argue about it. People would still say that there are holes in it, or that it's beatable, or that it's not, or that it's wrong, or that it's right. So we can all sit here at this moment that our sport is in and say it should be this or it shouldn't be that, and we could make it that. And then the second it is, we're going to find another issue with that, especially with anything revolving around steroids or performance enhancing drugs.
Of
it's
course.
just always going to be that way.
Yeah. Like, and me coming from the powerlifting world, especially, like there's not a lot in the like clean versus not clean in strongman. I think they have some other political differences, but like in the powerlifting world, in the United States, you have really two main organizations, USAPL and USPA. Those are the biggest organizations in the country, with the main difference being in drug testing or not.
Yeah.
Exactly. And now USPA is doing big things with tested as well. So like they're trying to displace the USAPL in that. I don't know if they're trying that, but they're offering that as a like, hey guys, you still want to compete, but you don't want to go USAPL, or for some reason, maybe there's just not USAPL opportunities in your area, but there will be USPA opportunities regardless. But that's always going to be a thing, right? So just as soon as one organization in the Scottish Highland Games decides we're going to drug test everybody, then there will be another organization that says, nah, man, we don't drug test anybody. Come on over, right? Like, and the 99, the middle 99% are going to be like, I'll go to whichever one my buddies are doing, or whichever one is closest and most convenient to me.
Or like,
I don't care about testing.
My brief attempt at powerlifting, I just looked at the rule books of what I was and wasn't allowed to do with like how I like to lift. Can I pick my head up off the bench? Can I wear the wrist wraps I want to rip? I didn't give a shit about the test. I'm not winning this meet either way. Like, so I'm going to go do whichever one I'm going to be more comfortable at.
Yep. And at my gym, I'm going to host and support my athletes. That I don't care where you go, man. Like, hey, does the athletic director for that particular meet or the meet director want to come down here and use my space to conduct a meet? Yeah. I'm not going to be loyal to either one, because guess what? They don't pay my bills here. So,
which is one of those ways that I think CrossFit shot itself in the foot there for a while, because like you had to be a part of, and they reined people in so much on what they could and couldn't host and things like that with their own gyms. It was weird. Yeah. This isn't a CrossFit podcast. We don't have to get into that, but like, man, it's a dangerous road to go down.
Yeah.
So, the only other note I had made on here was apparel, because our whole point of doing this was we were going to try and talk about that, and I think we sold a bunch of it already. So maybe we're behind the 8 ball, but will there be more? Will there not be?
Well, so that's a crazy thing. So, for those of you that don't know, Anvil Strength LLC is my business, and it is a gym. And on top of that, I am making and selling apparel. Well, I don't make it. Chinese sweatshops probably still make it at this point in time, and probably will continue since Trump folded on the tariffs. Taco, I'm trying to get your views up, man. Just make it hyper political.
Look, I'm hoping that this stupid lazy AI I use to make clips is going to grab onto those words.
Oh yeah. So since Trump really backed off on those tariffs, I think we're still going to be getting most of our clothes from China. So, but at any rate, I come up with ideas every once in a while, and I think, hey, this would look good on a shirt. So I either hire an artist to like make my idea look cool, or as in your case, the shirt that you're wearing. I just said some words and I said, put that on a piece of on a garment. Yeah. So it worked out for me.
That's
that particular
shirt, what I did with our
that particular shirt style. Long story short, what you're wearing is not what I initially picked out. The style, my style was going to be a little bit different, a little bit more of a acid wash look than I almost liken what you have on there as like a cryptic pattern almost. It's still like an acid wash or a mineral wash or whatever you want to call it. That's what they call it anyway. And but it just looks a little different than what I had originally picked out. And then my supplier is a local guy. He's really good, fantastic customer service. He ordered them, and the order got fulfilled, meaning they printed on them when they got the shirts before he got to inspect them. And he's like, oh, guys, that's not the right shirt. So he calls and he orders them again. And he says, I just want to confirm, like, hey, I just want to make sure we just didn't order the wrong part number, price number, however that stuff works. And they're like, nope, that's the right number. They send him again. They send him another couple boxes of shirts. And he's like, oh, no, it's not the right shirt. So he calls them again and says, what's going on, guys? Turns out they completely replaced what I wanted with what you have there in between the time that I picked it out and whatever. So I was like, he's like, man, just take the shirts. Like they're not what you want. Can't charge you for them, whatever. So, so I just, okay, I'll see what I can do with them. Dude, I sold, I have one left.
All right.
And
so maybe by the time this comes out, if anyone wants a small Anvil shirt.
So, the idea of the apparel is to kind of have apparel with a message, just like if like what you're wearing, effort over outcome. That's just kind of a motto in life. Is just worry less about the outcome and more about your effort. If you put in the right amount of efforts in the right way, then the outcome will be what it is. Hopefully good. Hopefully what you wanted, or at least close. But that's kind of where I go with like most of my stuff. Not trying to be like Teespring and think like, oh, I saw a picture and I thought it was goofy and just putting memes on shirts. That's not my idea. But my intention is to grow that apparel brand and just have stuff out there for people. What I want to do with the brand, and this is me going back to what are we talking about? How do we grow? How do we make the sport better? And I think each of us can kind of, myself, you, because now you have responsibility because you have a podcast and you complained about stuff, and now you have responsibility in making the place better. And same thing with Jacob on his podcast and all of us pro athletes. How do we make things better? What is our role within the sport? So what I really see my apparel brand is ultimately being is a way to funnel money back into the sport. Because I am a pro, I'm obviously biased towards having good pro classes. That step number one was sponsoring your games, sponsoring myself in your games, but whatever. I mean, hey, right?
Not all of, I think I've talked about this on the podcast, not all of the sponsorship dollars go straight back to the pro. 4/5 of it does.
Yeah.
Part of the money that comes in also just goes into the game. Making sure I have judges and implements and equipment and all that funky shit,
Yeah. So I intend to either by just sponsoring individual athletes, I don't just use, I don't just use these funds to pay for me to go to places. In fact, that's not even the top reason I have it. But if it means like sponsoring a specific athlete, or where I feel like is better spending is say, hey, those guys over in Virginia at the Woodridge Farms games, the Going Rogue guys are trying to create something that I do believe can grow and be bigger and be a premier event on the East Coast. I'd love to contribute to that. So A, I'm going to show up as an athlete, and B, I'm going to put a little bit of my brand out there and put some money and send some money to that to help it grow. And it's a nominal amount right now, but should this continue to grow and my brand continue to grow, I can throw even more money towards your games, towards No Fame, towards, I don't know, whoever else, whatever other games need, a little bit more financial backing. And I would love to see other brands that are kind of in the same space as me do the same thing. Like I think there's a Iron Herd Apparel, there's a Masters Thrower from the Midwest. Kilted Patriot is obviously just out there really just throwing money, at the right places. And then Stars and Thistles.
Yeah, they were fantastic. Yeah.
So all these companies, so that's kind of my idea is if I can sell more products, if I can sell more shirts and beanies and I got some really comfortable joggers that I'll continue to keep in stock, and I can sell all these things, that's just more money that I can put towards this sport to enhancing certain games and giving more athletes more opportunities. Because I think that's going to grow us more. Having more opportunities some way, somehow is going to grow us more. I'm certainly not bragging, but I make plenty of money to travel around this country to go do the 5 or 8 games a year that I do. And I get a little bit of it back at the bigger games like Enumclaw and Pleasanton and Alaska, hopefully this year, get a few
Yeah.
bucks back. I make enough to kind of like offset my hobby, which is kind of the biggest reason I went pro. But there are people out there who, again, like you were saying earlier, they have to go work an extra overtime shift to get that plane ticket so they can go have the opportunity to win a little bit of money. And if these games had an extra $2,000, that's nothing to sneeze at. I'm sure if somebody came to you and said, hey, Jeremy, here's $2,000 for your Highland games, you'd be like, shoot, I can go. I know what I can put that money towards right now. Like immediately, like it goes immediately towards increasing the quality, or at least getting more athletes, more opportunity, more pro athletes, whatever.
God, I could not handle more pro athletes right now if you paid me.
Oh, sure. And that's a testament. That's why I say that I think that your games could become the premier event, or a premier event on the East Coast.
Matt and I were talking about it. I've got 13 pro men and 3 pro women right now.
Okay.
And I'm talking to one other female pro, trying to just give them a class of at least 4, because I think it feels more legitimate, right?
Yeah.
And I want them to, wherever else they go, for no one to scoff at whatever numbers or scores they put up. Like, I want to treat the pros like pros. And it might be, it's for sure the largest pro game in the state, probably the largest pro game on the East Coast.
Okay.
And quite possibly the largest one. I don't know any other game that has a true pro class in the U.S. that's going to have 16 plus pro athletes. Like
Pleasanton and Enumclaw have that many. This year they're downsized a little bit, but they definitely do. They so Enumclaw's downsized. Enumclaw's downsized to, I think, 13 total pros this year, but last year there were 17, and then Pleasanton last year was 20 something. I don't remember exactly. I have to go count how many women in my mind. I think there was at least 8 pro women, and there was at one point I thought we had 13 pro men, but I think somebody dropped out at some point in there.
Okay. Which inevitably happens with anything of that size. I mean,
sure.
Anytime you start creeping around that 15 number, someone's going to have a life event that comes up to where
for sure.
Day of they don't make it out. And
I think Peter Carson-Buma's cows got sick and he had to pull out. So that was it. But that's a healthy professional class, and you found a way to make it work, and I would love to see you be able to grow that, because, and then you're having the Blue Ridge Championships on top of that. So it's a championship game of some sort, which it's a joke, the running joke in Highland Games forever, but you're like, hey, what kind of championship we got?
I figured I'd make it work for me, but when you talk about
it's on the right track though. A regional championship is what we need.
With clear standards and an actual, like, in your hands incentive for the athletes that are there. Like, I think it checks the main boxes as far as what it should be.
Yeah.
But going back to what you were saying with, like, finding a way to make the pro class work, it goes back to earlier when you said the professionals need to be professionals. Like, I just reached out to pros and, like, hey, I need you guys to be professionals in the sport and make yourself marketable and sponsorable so that we can have this game and have this opportunity. Like, that was the pitch, It was trying to get them to find a way to find the money so that the burden isn't entirely on me. Like, I'd love it if it was that way. If I had a $5,000 bank to go pull money out of, sweet. I don't. So if you guys want a game, sweet. Here's how I can help you make it marketable. Now help me make it marketable, and it can just
at the end of the day, we have we have to be marketable, right? And I think that y'all have talked about that ad nauseum, and you can't just be like, hey, so and so sponsored this event, and you're like, cool, now I have money for you. You have money to give me now when I win something. But now, like, just how my mind works is I spent some time sending emails to a few different companies, and I think 1 or 2 of them reached out to you and started sponsoring athletes. Now I feel kind of like I'm tied to that. I have to own that now. So I need to go be entertaining, and I need to encourage people to go buy equipment and buy stuff from Cerberus, and I don't Velasa and whoever else,
Cerberus ended up sponsoring a person. Yeah, Velasa said no. But
Well, hey,
eh, he's trying.
it is what it is. But like, it's still like, it's business, right? And
Yeah.
now I have to make sure that these people, like, I already use Cerberus products, so it's not like a stretch for me. But now I might be a little more inclined to put a little bit more content about, like, how do I use Cerberus product? How does that make me a better Highland Games thrower? Why should you use it? Why should you go buy a Cerberus throw bag?
Hmm.
You
Or
know?
when you're running around all day on the field with their name on your back, you're invested in your own performance. There are plenty of
Hmm.
games. You may not run into this doing a limited number, but there are a lot of pros that like they'll go to flat pay games and they know they're just there. And
Yeah.
again, it's not encouraging them to be professionals, but by tying them to one specific identity and knowing that, hey man, all the photos of you have got your sponsor's name
Yeah.
on the back, and I need you to go out and put on some kind of show. Like I need
Yeah.
you to go do something that looks good, you know?
Yeah.
So it's the way I, as an athletic director, always feel because I've always had sponsors and things like that I need to make sure it's a weird product to try and sell and convince people they're going to get a return on their investment of because it's not a material thing they can hold in their hand. So
Yeah.
selling essentially ad space at a festival is weird.
Yeah.
So I always want to make sure that like they're getting something out of it,
Yeah.
you know?
And
But
again, like, my call to the rest of to my fellow pro throwers, in putting content out, you got a social media, use it. There's some guys that just don't even really hardly even touch their social media, so whatever, they don't have much of a presence. But those of us that do have it, hey, Cerberus did sponsor me. Well, they didn't sponsor me. Let's say in let's make believe world that Cerberus sponsored me. Now I'm going to mention them again and again and again to my thousands of followers. Like, I don't know how many followers I have. I don't pay attention to that.
yeah.
It's all fake
But
propaganda.
I can tell you right now, Blatnick got sponsored because he puts comments out there. The guy that ended up paying
Hmm.
said, hey, he brought your name up first and said, "Is Danny sponsored yet?" And I said, "Yeah, Danny's sponsored." And he said, "Okay, who else have you got?" And I said, "These couple of people." He said, "Oh, easy, Justin." And I
Yeah,
said, "All right, cool. Do you want me to pass anything along to him? Like, you're not sponsoring him as a business, so like, how do I make this equitable for you?" He's like, "Nope, just appreciative of all the content he's put out there for the games." And I was like,
yeah, that's awesome. And I think that
"Easy,
that's
done."
I
You
and
know?
I think that that's again important for us to act like
Yeah.
professionals and go out there and, like, engage with the people. Our biggest fans are always going to be other throwers, first of all. Well,
Hmm.
our grandmas and then other throwers. Some, and maybe you can
Yeah.
flip those orders
My
sometimes.
grandma has dementia, so she doesn't really know what I do, but yeah.
Oh, it's exciting every
So
time.
yeah.
Yeah. So, so yeah, so we got to cater to our crowds. We got to cater to the fans, and we may not be signing autographs on cards. I have done that before, though, oddly.
Yeah.
The it's we got to represent. We got to represent well. We got to make people feel like we're valuable more than just watching us throw. Because again, if our biggest fans are other throwers, and we're at festivals where they're also throwing at the same time as us, which is a totally different subject. We don't have to go down that. We should probably not do that much anymore. Then they don't ever get a chance to see us other than online or in the athlete tent or just like passing by. So we
Yeah.
take that opportunity to engage with them and answer their questions and appreciate them, like they appreciate us. Just mutual appreciation.
Yeah. I mean, again, I harped on it with Justin, but when I actually sit down and think about it, so Justin's sponsored because he puts out content.
Mhm.
Kilted Patriot sponsored 2 athletes because they believe in the culture and the games and all of that, and because they've had ties to it through Joel.
Mhm.
The company that is sponsoring Graham is like, they don't even want the ad space or any of that stuff. Again, they just really, it is a guy who lives in the area who has a close affiliation with a clan and is just happy the games are near him.
Yeah.
So like that's 4 of the athletes. That's a third of my pro class that is now sponsored because of the culture of the games.
Yeah.
Or you could even go as far as to lump Stars and Thistles into that for
Yeah.
sponsoring Haley. Like, I mean, they're a Highland Game specific company, and they're
Yeah. I don't
doing
know
it
how much
because
money
they,
they've put into it, but like, I
yeah,
imagine you got to sell a lot of tacky to make up for that.
That's what I'm saying, because they've done a pro sponsorship and then they just did another bump just to make sure the AMs are taken care of.
Okay, cool. That's
So
awesome.
I've had a considerable, not in the grand scheme of a different sport, but for one game that's in its second year, like a decent amount of money come in because pros and athletes and all of that experience has had a good impression on someone down the line. So
Yeah.
it might pay off one day. Like, you're going around and talking to other athletes, to the clan tents, to the crowd. All of that stuff is part of what has gotten multiple of these people sponsored, which then also puts money back into my athletics budget to make sure everyone has lunches and shirts and prizes and all that other stuff, and a good relationship with the venue so that they're taking care of us. And just to make the entire game good is because of all of that stuff,
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I like I said, I think your game itself is going to be grow as long as you continue with your enthusiasm, because this is one of those um the, again, you're an athlete still, right? You're still trying to get better at your sport. So this it's hogging a lot of your mental bandwidth to be like a good athletic director and still trying to progress as an athlete. So
but it gives me a
as
good
long
out if I
as
throw like shit, I
yeah,
just feel like, I was thinking about
yeah,
stuff.
as long as you and Matt, and I'm assuming Mike is a bit involved with the at least that game, since
So the game is run entirely by me. I
okay,
do all of that stuff. I hire Mike to come out and do my live scoring and to be
okay,
personnel on the field, and then Matt comes and throws. When we
yeah,
started running games at some of the other locations, Matt was co-ADing, and then as his pro career took off, Andy also realized kind of how much public contact was needed. He was like, I don't really want to
yeah,
do this anymore, and I was like, totally fair. I was
yeah,
like, I don't mind. I'm fine sitting down in the meetings with venues and sponsors, and that,
sure,
it doesn't hurt my feelings at all. So
yeah,
no, it's just me sending copious amounts of emails and going to meetings and
yeah.
phone calls, and yeah.
Yeah, and I think it could be, like I said, it could continue to grow into being uh, I mean, a good landing spot for professional athletes. I wish it was closer. I gotta fly all the way across the dang planet, I feel like, to get over to you. But hey,
Yeah,
I'm here for it, I guess. I'll keep doing it.
yeah,
So
across one of the continents at least. So
yes, really far away.
yeah, but well, we're glad to have you, and we're happy that you're coming out, man. But anything else? We've now yapped for almost an hour and a half.
I
Anything
don't know.
else?
When is this airing? Is this airing before next weekend?
I'm going to try and get this one out soon. So we recorded another one turn before this that's going to take a
Okay.
little more editing. I'm pretty confident I'll be able to get this one out hopefully before next weekend. So if you got something
Okay.
for next weekend you want to plug,
I mean,
that just
I don't
makes
have a whole
me.
lot. If I think everybody by now knows the Alaska Games is next weekend, so it's the
Yeah.
the 28th and
Yeah, go get your
29th.
plane ticket. I'm sure last minute plane
Yeah,
tickets to Alaska are cheap.
yeah, it's a big open class for the men. As far as I say, big. There's 10 athletes, but there's $5,000 for men
Yeah.
being given away, and $5,000 for women being given away. And even more if there's some world records and state records and all that being broken as well. So there's a big chunk of money coming out of it. So
Yeah. Which I think Kyle just threw a 97 lightweight in training.
yeah,
So we'll see
yeah,
if something like that ends up.
we'll see. Yeah, I think the record in Alaska is 93. Alaska is, if you can come to Alaska and throw a record, you're doing something, because we have
Right.
had the best throwers in the world. Every one of the best throwers in the world over the past 20, maybe 25 years has made their way through Alaska at some point. So we've had Matt Vincent and Spencer Tyler and Dan McKim, and I mean we've had the IHGF Worlds had Vlad in his like early years was up here.
Mm-hmm.
We've had plenty of really really good athletes here. So to come up here and hit a world record or to hit a field record is going to be substantial. It's going to be good. Of course, I think
Yeah.
Kyle can do it. I think Matt is going to give the weights, as particularly the heavyweight, a run for its money. Because
Yeah.
I think it's
Hopefully.
in Alaska, it's only like 40, 48, 47. I say only, right? That's only, right? I'm only
Yeah, it's
6 feet
only.
away. No big deal for me, right?
Yeah. I wish
But
I was only 6 feet away. Yeah.
yeah, but it'll be a good show. There's some studs coming up. It did draw some out on the women's side, similar to like what you have there. It didn't draw as many out or up here, but again, traveling to Alaska is expensive. Yeah, last minute super expensive, but even several months out, I mean, to offset the cost, I think average from somebody coming up from the lower 48 to travel into Alaska with your hotel stay, rental car probably because we're an hour and 15 minutes from the airport to get to the games. Um, you kind of need to make $800 to $1,000. So
yeah, and I think coming from all the way over where I'm at, like if I was going to do rental cars, because I had looked, Matt was like, "Oh, come do the Open with me." I was like, "Come get the shit kicked out of me just for giggles." But like I was looking at probably close to like $1,500, and I was even planning it out in advance.
Yes.
Like
so super expensive. So that is a deterrent. But I'm looking at the roster, and every single thrower is podium worthy in at least their event. Like I'm expecting the podium in hammers. There's some other ones that I think I could get in there, but it'd be tough. But I'm expecting the podium in hammers. But there's people that are going to podium in height events. Like they are for sure going to get some money from height events. And of course, I look at Kyle as the guy to beat in every single one of the events. I think I can edge him in hammers if he doesn't have a good day and I have a great day.
Well, if you edge him, that might help, or it might hurt.
I don't know. I don't know how he acts under those pressures.
You're going to find out.
Dude, I'm going to spike his energy drinks with Blue Chew. See what happens.
They've got it in liquid form, too. You just put a couple little drops in there.
Dude, I'm in. I got him.
Yeah.
Throw hard. You'll get it later.
New shirt idea. I'm calling
that right? You got it, dude.
Yeah.
Hell yeah. So if this happens to pop before Alaska, just stay tuned. We don't use heavy athletes. I mean, they will enter the scores in the heavy athlete. Boo. But they usually do the ScottishScores.com, and they keep that up pretty live. So you can pop in there. I would imagine it's going to be on there like it has been for the past several years. That's a SAAA Northern Rockies thing. They're the ones that come and help with a lot of facilitating all of this stuff. They're a fantastic team, by the way. They come up and help a lot with the Alaska game. So
nice.
They go to Scottish Scores. I think it's one of those issues of, hey, we know what we know. It works for us. It is what it is. So just stay tuned, watch for that. And then for me, I'll be for actual games, not exhibition. I'm Alaska, of course, Enumclaw, Pleasanton, Woodridge, and then McMinnville, Oregon. My goal at some point in this season is to throw numbers worthy of qualifying for Celtic. I'm right on the edge right now, according to Heavy Athlete.
Yeah.
So if I can, I think we have until the beginning of August is the cutoff?
I think so, like August 1 or mid-August, something like that.
So I got 2 games in that amount of time to get some of my numbers up to be on that edge of getting the invite to Celtic. I think I don't remember who it was, which podcast, which host or which guest I was listening to, but I mean, it really is at the end of the day, it is the goal for United States professional Highland Games thrower. The goal is to qualify for the Celtic. Whether you actually go or not, it's just cool to say you qualified. So I'm pretty committed. September is a busy time for Highland Games. I'll be competing the last weekend of August in Pleasanton, and then 2 weeks later, I'm 3 weeks later, I'm down there with y'all.
Yep.
So trying to squeeze another game, flying all the way back over the East Coast would be really tough for me to do. I don't know. I might be convinced, but it'd be tough. But I just love to be able to say that, yeah, I got the numbers for it. And so that's my goal this year, is just to do everything I can within my power. And I've been training ridiculous hours. I tell everybody 5 hours a week, but I'm thinking I'm probably training right now 12 to 15 hours a week. So, so that's where I'm at right now. And so if you want to catch me at one of those games, cool, I'll be there. Always come up and say hi. Always say, hey, I am insert Instagram handle here. I talk to you sometimes because in a game, sometimes I'm an idiot And that's most of the time, actually. Almost all of the time, I'm an idiot.
Dude,
so
I remember people's Instagram handles so much more often than I remember their actual names. If they were
probably
coming to
could
me
use.
and they're like, "I'm Dave,"
Sure.
I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about. But then I'm Monkey 420. I'm like, oh fuck yeah.
Oh yeah, dude, it's awesome. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we go way back.
Yeah.
So always come say hi. Always introduce yourself as your Instagram handle, whatever. I am more than happy to answer questions. I try to seem approachable. I don't know if I am or not, but just come up, approach. I don't bite.
Yeah.
So.
All right. Well, sweet. And then everybody can find you on Instagram, Alaska Strong.
Yep.
And then is your YouTube the same name or is that Anvil?
No, it's Alaska Strong. I think you have to put that in there. But if you searched Alaska Strong or just my name, Danny Autrey, you're gonna find my YouTube channel.
All right, sweet. And then if they want to snag up that last small Anvil shirt.
Man, so that is, I should know this. I think it's Anvil Strength 907.myshopify.com. I'm gonna change that at some point to have it so I don't have to remember all that stuff.
Yeah.
So
I was watching The Office yesterday, and it was the www.creedthoughts.gov/ where he thinks he's running a blog. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think I'll go ahead just out of because again I'm an idiot and I don't want to have to try to remember how all that got together. I'll just pay the extra for the domain name because I think that's an option.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm pretty new to this. Currently, if you go to that, there is the shirt that Jeremy's wearing is on there to look at. Again, I only have one size small left. I have like 2 pairs of joggers, 6 or 7 beanies, which I don't know. It's not beanie season for almost anybody, but us in Canada, state number 51. And but I will have some more stuff up there. The latest one is a red shirt. Go check it out. It's can't is the real C word. Kind of has a cool what's it called? Kill Bill theme going on there. That's a pre-order shirt. So when I say pre-order, that means you're going to order it, and then I'm going to put all the orders together, and then they're going to print it. So like, I hate to do that to people, but maintaining inventory is
for small
stupid.
stuff. Yeah, it's the best way to do it. Yeah.
Yeah, maintaining inventory is real dumb. But that does mean though, from the point that you buy it to the point that you get it might be a month. So that just kind of sucks. So it'd almost be a surprise if I order something and didn't get it for a month and it showed up. I'd be like, oh, happy birthday!
That's pretty exciting. Yep.
Yeah. So check it out. Check it on site. And then before September, I will restock on the shirt that he's wearing, and then put out another limited run. Even though I never expected to do more than one run of it. I honestly, mostly my gym members bought all the shirts before I got them out there, and then I handed a bunch of them to fellow throwers at games. So, it is what it is. But I'll put that one out there because I really, again, the message kind of resonates with me. Other than that, just keep your eye out for new content. It'll come out.
Awesome.
Again, the more stuff, the more merch I sell, the more money I have. I feel comfortable sending to different games and different athletes to have more opportunity.
Awesome. Well, fantastic. Well, thanks again so much for coming on, man. I appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem, man. Thanks for having me. I don't know what time it is there. It's like in the future or something. So
yeah, something like that. It's I don't know what time. 7:41.
Oh, that's late. It's almost bedtime.
Yeah. I got to get my rest. This doesn't just happen.
All right, brother.
So later, man.
Yeah, later.